Discomfort is a word I've been using a lot lately when talking about how we function, how our minds work. And I use that word deliberately. At first glance, it might seem too soft because I use it to contrast pleasure. All right, pleasure is what we're kind of seeking in life, and I use pleasure kind of generically. It's not necessarily the hedonistic version, but anything that brings us some form of pleasure. And on the opposite end of that, I say is discomfort. You might think it should be pain, right? But pain is a type of discomfort. I use discomfort because it's a bit more generic. It covers a lot of different things, and I think it's more representative of how we function. We don't want anything that makes us uncomfortable or brings that discomfort. I think naturally we want to maintain a state of comfort, and I use that word because if you think about it, there's the pleasure piece, which is what we want. We want to feel good ultimately, right? Some form of pleasure. But at a base level, at a minimum, we want to feel comfortable. Those two, you can have both. You can be comfortable and feel pleasure, but comfort I would put kind of a step below that to an extent. And then there's discomfort when you don't have that comfort. That's what we're trying to avoid, and it's representative, or I think it's more accurate because it covers even small things, right? Small things could bring us discomfort. You have to make a phone call to somebody that you don't really want to talk to. You're sitting on the couch, watching TV, and you realize you forgot to close the garage, and you got to get up and do it. There's that feeling of discomfort. I don't want to do that. Then obviously you can go to extremes, right? You can go to literal physical pain that brings discomfort, emotional pain that brings discomfort of maybe a relationship that's breaking up, or somebody passes away, or whatever it might be. You're working in a job that you hate. These things all bring discomfort in our minds. What we feel is we're trying to maintain a state of comfort at a minimum, and these things are taking away from that. I say all that because we seem to view discomfort as a singular thing. There's two common approaches to discomfort, I would say. Well, there's probably three. One is to dismiss it altogether and ignore it. Kind of it is what it is mentality. You suck it up, you deal with it. Life is suffering. You muscle through, pull up your big boy pants, put your big boy pants on, and you go do what you got to do, right? That's one view of it. There's another view of discomfort that kind of sits on the other extreme, which is one where you try and practice positivity and gratitude, and you try and dismiss discomfort in the way of, I'm just going to focus on the positive. Even if something bad happens, right? I have to get up to go close the garage. Well, it's a good thing because I wanted to get a drink anyway, so no big deal. It's actually a good thing. Or you can take it to an extreme, right? Somebody passes away and you feel like you evolve from that. You learn, you become better as a person. Something good comes of it. And you dismiss the discomfort that way. Or there's probably the most common way people handle it is what we talk about all the time. Our minds try and spin narratives to avoid that discomfort. We create alternate realities for ourselves to help try and minimize that, or at least redirect that discomfort, minimize it as best we can, right? Try and mitigate it as best we can. We'll take on longer term discomfort if it means in this moment, in this short term, I can avoid it, right? And then when the longer term comes, we kind of deal with it as we need to. So there's all different ways you could deal with it. But in all of those, I think it's a very simplistic view. We treat discomfort the same in all those scenarios. It's a bad thing that we want to avoid. And it's all the same. No matter what type of discomfort it is, we don't want it. We want to get rid of it. We either want to pretend it's not there, or we want to just suck it up, or we want to create a narrative, right? We want to get rid of discomfort. As I say, though, I think it's too simplistic. I think the word is right as an umbrella word to encompass it, but there's layers underneath it that we need to acknowledge, that there's types of discomfort. And the basis of this kind of hypothesis, or this kind of thesis, if you will, is that all discomfort is not bad, right? Some discomfort is bad. We're right to try and avoid it. Some discomfort, a lot of it, we create in our own minds, right? We fear something that's going to happen. We overreact to things that happen. We get overly emotional. We get identity issues that tie us to things. We get biases. We get all sorts of things that create discomfort when perhaps it's not real, or it shouldn't be real, right? There's ways for us to deal with that are much better, and we don't need to face that discomfort. But I believe we are wired to feel discomfort and avoid it for a good reason. It's functional. It's useful. right? The simplest example is you put your hand in a flame, you're gonna pull it back because there's discomfort, and it's your body and your mind telling you like, hey, get away from that. That's bad for you. There's times in which we need to accept discomfort and say, hey, that's bad. I'm gonna get away from it, right? I don't want any part of that. And that's got a functional purpose for us. If we were to just dismiss it and say, well, you got to suck it up, or go the other way and say, well, it's a beautiful color that it makes when my flesh burns, right? To try and find the positive and be grateful for that beautiful view. Again, bad situation. Your hand's going to get pretty badly burned in either of those. So we shouldn't be dismissing all types of discomfort. We need to acknowledge that there's certain functional types of discomfort that we don't want to avoid. Why do I say all this? Well, as I said in the beginning, and as I've stated in other videos, I think much of what our subconscious mind is doing is trying to avoid discomfort. I think the subconscious is too simplistic in the view of it, right? It's much more willing to sacrifice long-term for right now because it just doesn't want discomfort. It views it all the same. I think even our conscious mind at times has too simplistic a view of it. As I said, if you take that extreme on either end, right? It is what it is, or, find the positive. Those can be useful things if done correctly. If you accurately assess what the discomfort you're dealing with is, and then you can determine what to apply to it. Sometimes you do want mental toughness, and you want to say, hey, I got to suck this up for, some time being because there's a greater benefit to be had at the end of it. Or, hey, this thing is terrible. It's awful, but let me try and find some positives in it. I'm not going to dismiss the negatives, but I want to try and find some positives so that I can handle it, right? I can cope, I can deal. But there's certain discomforts that we feel because it's our body, it's our mind trying to tell us, hey, this is wrong. You need to do something. You need to fix this. You need to get your hand out of the fire. There's a problem here. And if we try and take the simplistic view and try and, to some extent, rewire our brain to just view all discomfort as the same and we should dismiss all of it, it's all bad, get rid of it, I think we do ourselves a disservice. I think we're worse off in some ways, right? So I'm not dismissing gratitude. I'm not dismissing mental toughness, obviously. I'm not dismissing the idea of trying to avoid some discomfort, but you have to treat it with the nuance and complexity that it deserves. You need to focus on identifying what type of discomfort is it. Is it functional or is it useless? Is it value add or is it hurting us? Net, right? Net negative. Once you figure that out, then you know how to handle it. But as I say, treat discomfort with the nuance it deserves. Understand what it means, what it is, and then figure out how you want to handle it.